Hi, everybody. My name's Bill Weaver, and I'm honored to be one of your pastors here at Reynoldsburg Community Church. I hope that you've been able to continue on the daily walk, reading scripture every day. And if you haven't been a part of that, I encourage you, stop by the Connection Center today, ask for a Daily Walk Bible, and join us, as many of us are reading the Bible every single day with a daily walk plan. I also hope that many of you, if not all of you, have been able to continue on and practice spiritual disciplines week after week after week. Now, just for a quick summary, here are the spiritual disciplines that we've been talking about. The spiritual discipline of worship, finding that time every day to just practice worship. Be it for an hour, be it for less, but just centering ourselves, reminding ourselves that God is with us. And then fasting, taking that time to be able to experience need, lack, or a want, and be able to declare that God, you are more than enough. Fasting is important and was important for many of us. And then prayer, spending that time in prayer. We had a prayer vigil here at the church, but also encourage you to just take an hour out of your day to just pray. Share those requests. Share what's on your heart. Share what's going on in your life and all around you in your world, and just pray. And then we talked about journaling and being able to make our faith visible by writing down, seeing how God has worked, is working, and will continue to work. To see for ourselves when we're writing it down that God is our hero. Journaling makes our faith visible, and I hope you practice that. And this week, we're going to be talking about evangelism. Something I've learned, and I shared this with you last week, that the spiritual disciplines are always waiting for you. Always. There's never a bad time or wrong time to jump in and practice spiritual disciplines, or just a spiritual discipline. They're always waiting for you. Always. So jump in at any time. Practice any of these. They're always waiting for you. But there's something else I've learned, especially this season of my life. The spiritual disciplines are helpful when I feel helpless. When I feel helpless, that's when the spiritual disciplines seem to be the most helpful. When I don't know what to do, I don't know where to turn. Maybe I haven't heard from God lately. Maybe I haven't seen where God is at work. When I feel helpless, the spiritual disciplines will always be helpful. And they're always there, waiting for me, waiting for you. Do not keep these spiritual disciplines in just one sermon series and be done. Go back to them. Practice them. When things are going great, turn to a spiritual discipline, give thanks. And when you feel helpless, turn to the spiritual disciplines, because they will always be helpful. Now, like I said, today we're going to be talking about evangelism. You see, there comes a point in our faith, you know this to be true, where we can practice things personally. We can encounter God personally. We can experience the truth and the grace and the blessings personally. But there comes a point in our faith where we must go out and share. And not just be personal, but be public. To not just keep for ourselves, but to share with others. And that's what the spiritual discipline of evangelism is. It's the opportunity to take what we have experienced personally and share it publicly. So this week, we're going to be challenged to practice the spiritual discipline of evangelism to a person or even to a location or place, I'm going to be asking you, who's your one? Who's your one this week that needs to hear the good news? That perhaps you need to evangelize and share, make public what you have experienced personally. Now, to do this, we're going to be in another great and interesting book, Zechariah. Now, Zechariah was a prophet, and he existed at a time when the exile came to an end, and the people were coming out of exile of Babylon and going back home to Jerusalem. And within this book, and to these folks, Zechariah was sharing a challenge and an encouragement. The challenge was to tell these folks, it's time to rebuild. It's time to rebuild. Look around you. You've been through so much. Your ancestors have been through so much. And Jerusalem doesn't really look like a home. It's time to rebuild. But then also Zechariah wanted to share an encouragement to these folks coming out of exile. The encouragement was this: God is at work. God was at work before the exile. God was even at work during the exile. And God is still at work now as we're coming back from exile. So open your eyes, open your hearts, open your ears. See for yourself how God is at work. Now, do you know why Zechariah had to share this challenge and this encouragement? It's because the people didn't want to accept the challenge and they didn't always see God was at work. That's why he had to share it. People were coming back home and felt completely overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. And they were looking around both at their lives and in their present situation and couldn't see God at work. So Zechariah had to share this word of challenge and encouragement. Have you been there before? You come back and you don't even know where to start? Feel a little helpless? Or maybe you just need someone to remind you God really is at work? Yeah, but you don't know what I went through. I went through this, and I had to go through this, and I had to experience that. You needed someone to step in and say, wait. God has always been at work. Zechariah needed to share that word to those people because they weren't seeing it for themselves. You've been there before, haven't you? I have too. That's why this spiritual discipline of evangelism is so important. Because there's folks that need the challenge and the encouragement, what we've experienced personally, to be shared. Now, Zechariah, where we're going to be today, we're making a shift. What he was doing in terms of encouragements and challenges, he makes a shift to vision and prophecy. Specifically, vision and prophecy about what will it look like when the Messianic King, the Messiah, comes and resides with his people. What will it look like when God's kingdom resides on earth? He even took it a step further. People, are you ready to experience God's kingdom on earth? Can I just take a moment and ask you, family, are you ready to experience God's kingdom on earth? Are you ready? What we're about to read is not only describing what that kingdom can look like, but it's also asking, are you ready? Are you ready for God's kingdom on earth? So are you ready? Off we go. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly, and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Some of you recognize this passage already. It's a High Holy Sunday where we read these words. Do you remember what that High Holy Sunday is? Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday. That's right. This has been used as a prophecy to describe this is what Jesus did on Palm Sunday when he rode into Jerusalem on that donkey. The mighty king. Now here's what's interesting. There's some words here that are powerful. The king comes to you righteous, right standing, right living, right relationship with God and others. Victorious, conqueror, defeats evil and wrong, and yet lowly. These words don't usually come together. Righteous, victorious, and lowly. Humble, afflicted. So Jesus rode in, righteous, victorious, and yet felt all the weight of the world on him. Felt afflicted, lowly, humble, feeling that weight. And he did so on a donkey, on a colt or a son, the foal, the baby of a donkey. Now, you read this and maybe we get excited about Palm Sunday. We see Jesus as the righteous and victorious and yet humble and lowly. But what does this have to do with evangelism? I think it has something to do with this. Evangelism lifts up the humble king. You know, I find it interesting that Jesus was lowly, which means he had to be lifted up. He's looking for you and he's looking for me to lift him up. Evangelism lifts up the righteous, the victorious, the lowly and humble king. Now this is where I'm going to step on some of your toes. Hope rides on a donkey, not on a war horse. In a world and in a culture that is infatuated, in love with power, in love with wealth, in love with conquering and maybe even fighting and jarring and warring. What we're saying is we're going to lift up the humble king because our king didn't ride in on a conquering war horse. He rode in on a humble donkey. And guess what? It upset people back then too when Jesus did it, because they wanted him to conquer and overthrow Rome. And that is not how it happened. Jesus ended up on a cross. And then he told you and me to deny ourselves and pick up a cross. Some of us still today, we're looking for or wanting to be a part of a war horse, when instead, Jesus still rides in on a donkey. Evangelism lifts up the humble king. It doesn't lift up ourselves. It doesn't lift up our power. It doesn't lift up our wants, our ability to conquer. It lifts up the humble King Jesus. Evangelism lifts up the humble king. The text continues. I, the Lord, will take away the chariots from Ephraim. Ephraim is another term that means that northern kingdom Israel. It was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and one of the stronger ones. So the Lord will take away the chariots from Ephraim, the northern kingdom, and the war horses, the conquerors, from Jerusalem, or the Judah, the southern kingdom of Judah. So he's going to take away those conflicts and tensions and battles. And the battle bow will be broken. And the Lord himself will proclaim peace to the nations. His rule will extend from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. So how far reaching and far expanding is this kingdom? The whole earth. And how will God do this? Once again, not with chariots. Not with war horses, but through peace. So what does this tell me about evangelism? It's this. Evangelism shares God's peace with the nations. Watch this. God's mission is the church's commission. God's mission is to share peace to all people, the nations. That mission becomes our commission, our reason to be sent out. That's what commission means. We are sent out. Once again, what we've experienced personally gets to be sent out publicly. Evangelism shares God's peace. Evangelism is looking for those opportunities for reconciliation, looking for those opportunities where the good news of the gospel can be shared and meet people right where perhaps the conflict and warring is happening. The gospel can step in and ease and bring peace. God's mission of peace becomes the church's commission, the reason why we're being sent out to share the good news and the hope of God's peace. The text continues. Now, as for you, because of the blood of my covenant with you, because of the promise I made with Abraham a long time ago, and even though you people who are coming back from exile, you and your ancestors were unfaithful, I made a promise to you. Because of that promise, I will free your prisoners from the waterless pit. Return to your fortress, you prisoners of what? Hope. Even now, I announce that I will restore, love that word, to be brought back to the original intended state. I will restore twice as much to you. See, this is what's interesting. You were a prisoner once in a waterless pit. That's a horrible place to be. To now, you became a prisoner of hope. You're still the same person. You're still a prisoner, but what you're chained to, what you're attached to, is no longer a pit. But you're now chained and attached to hope. Your sentence was once to be punished in a pit. The sentence is now, you got to live with and carry hope. Now, if I was to pop quiz you and ask, which prisoner would you rather be? The prisoner in a pit or a prisoner to and with hope? Exactly. I would too. I would much rather be a prisoner of hope, chained and attached to hope, so that whatever I do and wherever I go, hope is always with me. Even when I feel helpless, hope is always chained to me. And the result would be being restored even twice as much. So you know what this tells me about evangelism? It tells me this. Evangelism tells the story of your rescue. Prisoners become ambassadors. This is where I just want to take a moment. Evangelism doesn't have to be as complicated as perhaps we have made it. Evangelism is sharing what you have experienced personally and making it public. It tells your story of rescue. Do you remember the times when you felt like you were just stuck in a pit? Do you remember the times where it just felt chaos in your life? Do you remember times where it just felt like angst and conflict? And then Jesus ushered in hope. Maybe a reason to live. Maybe a reason to get out of bed one more time. Maybe a reason to give church another chance. Maybe a reason to join a Wesley group. Maybe a reason to go on a Emmaus walk. Jesus showed up and provided hope. Friends, evangelism isn't as complicated as we make it to be. Evangelism is telling the story of your rescue. We all were once prisoners to a pit. Now we're ambassadors who are chained and attached to hope. Evangelism is just telling that story. How did you get from the pit to hope? Evangelism tells the story of your rescue. It's personal. But again, evangelism is sharing what we've experienced personally and make it public. And in particular, it tells the story of your rescue. How you went from a prisoner in the pit to an ambassador and prisoner of hope. And can I just take a moment? Many of us are here today, if not all of us are here today, because one person in our life decided we needed to hear their story. And because we heard their story, it caused us to change ours. It caused us to turn to Jesus. This is evangelism at its finest. It tells the story of your rescue because someone else told their story of their rescue to you. And now here you are. Here I am. We get to do the same and carry it on. Now, we're going to fast forward to Zechariah chapter 10. For the rest of chapter 9, Zechariah takes some time to talk about, so what does it look like when God comes back? What does it look like when the kingdom comes to earth? And what's described? The Lord saves the day. The Lord is the great hero. The Lord conquers all evil and enemies. The Lord is like a shepherd who cares for and protects his flock. This is why Jesus called himself the great shepherd. And the sheep recognize my voice, right? Because when the Lord comes, it's like a shepherd protecting the flock. Now from there, Zechariah writes this. Ask the Lord for rain in the springtime. It is the Lord who sends the thunderstorms. He gives showers of rain to all people. How many people? All people. And plants of the field to everyone. How many ones? Everyone. Now, see how we got here. Notice the transition. Just before chapter 10, Zechariah is describing when the Lord comes, he's going to take care of his people. He's going to be a shepherd to his flock. And he's going to protect, and he's going to take care of all evil, and he's going to bring in good things. He's going to restore twice as much. But now the transition, it's not just about the current flock. It's not just about caring for the people that came out of exile back then. Eventually, it's meant to impact all people. It's meant to impact everyone. So you know what this tells me about evangelism? It's this. Evangelism prays for God's power to move for everyone. Evangelism grows when prayer rains down. We are to begin to pray for everyone, for all the people in our lives. And I'm going to guess, we got some people in our lives that could use some prayer. Now I know we may be the first ones to raise our hands and say, yep, and I'm one of those people. Pray for yourself. That's fine. But don't become blind. There are other people in your life that needs prayer. And just as Zechariah encouraged, I want to encourage us as well that evangelism prays for God's power to move, for that rain to come for all people, for everyone. Friends, we spent a week praying. Don't neglect that. Keep praying, because there are people that need prayer. And when we pray, God moves. And then we conclude the text here. The idols speak deceitfully. Diviners see visions that lie. So notice who's leading the people. It's not good things. These diviners tell dreams that are false, and they give comfort in vain. Therefore, I'm so glad you asked. What is the therefore? So once again, we're coming from a place where God is going to be like a shepherd to his flock. He's going to come. He's going to rule and reign, take care of evil. But it begins with what? Praying that God impacts everyone. Why? Because there are people who are worshiping idols. There are people who are looking for other people who claim to be spiritual and leaders They're seeing visions that aren't true, dreams that are false, and not even real true comfort to people. Okay, come on. We see this today, don't we? We see this today. People are looking for something to worship. They just don't know where to go. And they're going to different people and leaders to try to get that spiritual advice, that spiritual help. And it's all for naught. That's a real problem. So therefore, what do we need? The people are wandering like sheep oppressed for lack of a shepherd. They're wandering. They're lost. They're turning everywhere they can, but they're not turning to the right places. So what do they need? This is where evangelism helps. It's this point. Evangelism goes to the wandering with the shepherd. Evangelism goes to the wandering with the hero. Who's the shepherd? Who's the hero? Let me help you out. It's not you. It's not me. And it's not my war horse. It's Jesus. Jesus is the shepherd. And while I'm chained to hope, it means I'm chained to Jesus, my hope. And I need to bring Jesus to those who are wandering. They're lost. And you want to know why I can say they're lost? It's because I myself was lost. I know how that felt. And friends, there are days I still know how that feels. And I need the shepherd. Evangelism goes to the wandering with the shepherd. Hear me now. Changing the world starts with changing one heart. One heart at a time. Friends, I said it at the start and I'll say it out now. Who's your one? Who's your one? Who's the one person? Or what's the one location that are wandering and they need the shepherd? They need you to bring the shepherd. So in regards to your one, here are the summary points of where we've been today. But while I'm reading through these, have the one in mind. Okay? Have the one. The spiritual discipline of evangelism lifts up the humble king. The spiritual discipline of evangelism shares God's peace with the nations, with all people. And the spiritual discipline of evangelism tells the story of your rescue. And the spiritual discipline of evangelism prays for God's power to move. Because God made a shift. It's not just a particular flock or to a particular people coming from exile. It shifted in chapter 10 to all people, everyone. So the spiritual discipline of evangelism prays for God's power to move amongst everyone. And the spiritual discipline of evangelism goes to the wandering with the shepherd. Family, who's your one? Who's that person? Because I think they may need this. And they need you. They need you to bring the humble King Jesus, to present the shepherd, to be praying, to share your story. You're not the hero. Jesus is the hero, but you gotta bring Jesus. This is what evangelism is all about. So who's your one? Now I know, there are days, I'm gonna be honest now, there are days you yourself are the one. There are days where I'm the one, and I have to remind myself of this. It's true. There are days that we ourselves need to be evangelized to. But I would offer this. Usually when I need to be evangelized to, I don't evangelize to myself. the church steps in at just the right time, or a person comes at just the right moment and presents the shepherd to me. Friends, there are people in our lives that are waiting for you to do the exact same thing. Who's your one? Or what's that place and location where the shepherd needs to be brought and shared, and your story needs to be heard? Is it a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it someone in school with you? Oh, here's a good, is it someone at work? Yes, maybe even the boss. Who's the one? Are you willing to practice the spiritual discipline of evangelism this week? Or at least maybe opening yourself up. Open those eyes, open the ears, open the heart, and look for the opportunity to evangelize to your one.